Good morning everyone. In this session we'll start with the development of brain part. Okay. So what was the last topic? Which topic we discussed in the last session? It was development of nervous system. So in which week we can see the development of nervous system? In which week we can see the development of nervous system? The development of nervous system takes place in the 3rd and 4th week. Okay. By the end of 4th week, we can see the development of your neural tube, neural crust cells, and also ectodermal placods. So, what is the procedure for neural tube formation? What it is called? It is called as neurulation process. So the development of brain takes place in the 4th and 5th week of the intra-embryonic life. Okay. So before stepping into the development of your forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain, we should be aware of 4 basic topics. What are those 4 basic topics? It is the development of brain vesicles and formation of flexures, stop talking, development of ventricular system, it's called as ventricular system. The last one is histogenesis. So these are the 4 basic topics we should be aware before stepping into the development of brain. Okay. So this is the neural tube. In which part we can see the fission of neural tube? At which somoid level? Is it given there? In which somoid level we can see the development of neural tube? Your somites are derived from your intra-embryonic mesoderm part. We can see the somites from the 20th day to 30th day of intra-embryonic life. Okay, there are about 44 pairs of somites present in the embryonic stage. Okay, your somites are derived from the intra-embryonic mesoderm. There are about 44 pairs of somites present in our body, and we can see them from the 20th to 30th day of the intra-embryonic life. Okay, your neural tube first gets fused at which somite level? Your neural tube will get fused at the which somoid level? It is already discussed in previous class. Your neural tube will get fused at the 4th somoid level. Okay, this is the neural tube. During the development process, first it will get fused at the 4th somoid level. From the 4th somoid level, it will get fused in the cranial direction first, and later it will get fused in the caudal direction. This cranial part is going to develop as a brain, and the caudal part is going to develop as a spinal cord. Okay. On the cranial part, we can see the enlargement like this, and your caudal part will get expanded in the size. This cranial enlarged part will later develop into vesicles like this. Okay, what are these vesicles are called as? These are called as prosencephalon, and this is mesencephalon, and last one is called as rodencephalon, and this will be your spinal cord. Okay, this enlarged cranial part of your neural tube will give rise to the brain vesicles. That is the very first topic, development of brain vesicles. First we can see three vesicles, those are prosencephalon, mesencephalon and rhombencephalon. That is rhombencephalon. Since these are the very first vesicles to form in the development of the brain, these are named as primary brain vesicles. These are named as primary brain vesicles, and these primary brain vesicles can be seen by the end of fourth week. By the end of fourth week. Any doubts on this? Any doubts? Okay. Later, by the beginning of the fifth week, these primary brain vesicle will give rise to secondary brain vesicles. Okay. This prosencephalon will divide into two parts, whereas your mesencephalon will remain the same. It does not give any subdivision, and your rhombencephalon will give rise to two other vesicles. Okay. This is the structure. This is your secondary brain vesicles. Okay, this is the secondary brain vesicles. The very first vesicle here, it is called as telencephalon. It is called as telencephalon, then followed by diencephalon, then we have mesencephalon. Your mesencephalon will remain the same, then we have metencephalon, M-E-T-E-N, metencephalon, and the last one is myelencephalon, M-Y-L-E-N cephalon, and this will be your spinal cord. This is how the development of your secondary brain vesicles will take place, and this can be seen at the beginning of fifth week. Any doubts in this? Any doubts? So this shows the development of your brain vesicles. We started from the neural tube. Your neural tube is first present as a neural plate, and that neural plate will fuse first at the fourth somoid level. Later it will give rise to your brain and spinal cord. The cranial enlarged part will give rise to three vesicles in the first place. Those are called as primary brain vesicles. The first three primary brain vesicles are prosencephalon, mesencephalon and rhombencephalon. These vesicles can be seen by the end of the fourth week. Okay. Later these primary brain vesicles will develop into a secondary brain vesicles. These can be seen at the beginning of the fifth week. Your prosencephalon will give rise to telencephalon and diencephalon. Your mesencephalon will remain the same. The last rhombencephalon will give rise to metencephalon and then myelencephalon. Okay. Any doubts in this? No doubts? Okay. What do you mean by flexure? Flexures. What do you mean by flexures? How the formation of flexures takes place? Flexures are nothing but bending. Whatever the part that gets bent during your development process is called as flexures. It means not folding, it means bending. Okay. So now imagine the same tube like this. Okay, this will be your prosencephalon, mesencephalon, rhombencephalon and spinal cord part. Okay, in this development we can totally see the 4 flexures. Okay, the very first flexure takes place at this region. This is how it will look. Stop talking. So this is the prosencephalon, mesencephalon and rhombencephalon. And the very first bending is taking place at this point here. Okay, this flexure is called as cervical flexure. This is called as cervical flexure. Okay, this cervical flexure or bending takes place between your spinal cord and your hindbrain or rhombencephalon. Remember the point, cervical flexure takes place between the spinal cord and the hindbrain. Okay, this is the very first flexure we can see, and this is happening in this direction. The flexure taking place in this particular direction. Okay, the next one is, we already have the cervical flexure. Then we can see the flexure at your mesencephalon part. Okay, now the flexure is taking place at this region. What is going on there? First 2 benches. Okay, and this flexure is called as mesencephalic flexure. Okay, the mesencephalic flexure or bending is taking place at the mesencephalon part of the developing brain. Okay. Now the flexure is taking place in this area and also in this area. This is the third flexure. This is called as pontine flexure. And the last one, this one is called as the telencephalic flexure. This is called as telencephalic flexure. Okay, these are the 4 important flexures or bendings we see in the development of the brain. Okay, the very first one is cervical flexure that takes place between your spinal cord and the rhombencephalic part. The second one is mesencephalic flexure. It takes place in the mesencephalon or in the midbrain area. Okay. The third one is pontine flexure. This bending takes place at your rhombencephalic area. So this bending will give rise to your which part? Mesencephalon part and mesencephalon part or vesicles, I can say. This will develop as a mesencephalic brain vesicle and this will develop as a mesencephalic brain vesicle. And in this area, we can again see one more flexure that is called telencephalic flexure. So this will rise into telencephalon and this will rise into diencephalon brain vesicle part. So again we have 5 vesicles, 2, and this will be the 3, that is mesencephalon, metencephalon and myelencephalon, 4th one and 5th one. This is how the formation of your brain vesicles and also flexure takes place at the same time. Okay. Any doubts? Any doubts in the flexures? Okay. Ventricular system. What do you mean by ventricular system? Ventricular system. How the ventricles in your brain will form? If you observe the neural tube, this area of the neural tube is present as a cavity. Okay, this cavity is referred as a spaces present in your brain. Okay, later these spaces which are present in your neural tube will form the ventricles, or it is just named as ventricles. Okay, all the ventricles present in your brain, including in your spinal cord area, will together give rise to ventricular system. So basically ventricles of your brain and spinal cord are nothing but the space or the cavity of your neural tube. Okay. Which vesicle is this? First one. This is here. Which one? This is telencephalon. What about this? This is diencephalon. This one, mesencephalon, followed by, what is the next one? It is metencephalon. The last one is myelencephalon. Next we have spinal cord. Okay. Now in this region, this whole area will present as a cavity, and these cavities will be given different names in different area. Okay. The cavity present in your telencephalon, in this area, it is called as lateral ventricle. This is called as lateral ventricle. Okay, and this here, in this area, it is called as third ventricle. It is called as third ventricle. Okay, in your mesencephalon area, this whole narrow space, this is called as aqueduct. It is called as aqueduct. In few textbook, it is also mentioned as cerebral aqueduct. Okay, and this area, this is called as fourth ventricle. This is called as fourth ventricle. And the last, in your spinal cord, whatever the space present, this is called as central canal. This is called as central canal. These are the structures we can see in the ventricular system of the brain. Okay. Ventricles are nothing but the space or cavity present in your neural tube part. The one present in the telencephalon area, it is called as lateral ventricle, followed by third ventricle in the diencephalon region. In the mesencephalon, we can see a narrow tube-like area that is called as aqueduct, or it is also known as cerebral aqueduct. Okay. Then followed by myelencephalon, it is fourth ventricle. At last, in the spinal cord area, this cavity or space is referred as central canal. Okay. These are the ventricular system of your developing brain. Okay. And these cephalons will give rise to adult structures of the brain. Any idea which adult structures these cephalons will develop into? Your telencephalon will develop into, it will develop into cerebral hemisphere. Okay, and your diencephalon will develop into, it will develop into thalamus, epithalamus, and which thalamus is there? One more. Thalamus, epithalamus, and hypothalamus. It will develop into hypothalamus. Okay. Your mesencephalon will give rise to your midbrain part. What about the metencephalon? What are the parts you can see in the hindbrain? Your metencephalon will give rise to pons and also cerebellum. Okay, and your myelencephalon will give rise to medulla oblongata. Okay, and last followed by we have spinal cord. Okay, any doubts? Okay, in which week we can see the development of your brain? Starting from which week? From the 4th week to 5th week. Okay, so at what somoid level the neural folding takes place? At the 4th somoid level. Your neural plate will first fuse at the 4th somoid level. Okay, then it will fuse in the cranial part first, followed by the caudal part. Your cranial part will develop into which organ? It will develop into brain. Caudal part will develop into spinal cord. Okay, so the very first topic is development of brain vesicles. What do you mean by vesicles? The enlarged cranial part of the neural tube will give rise to brain vesicles. We can see primary brain vesicles and secondary brain vesicles. In which week we can see the primary brain vesicles? By the end of 4th week we can see the primary brain vesicles. What do we name them? We name them, there are 3 primary brain vesicles. We name them as prosencephalon, mesencephalon, and rhombencephalon. Okay. By the beginning of the 5th week we can see the secondary brain vesicles. There are 5 secondary brain vesicles. What are those? Telencephalon, diencephalon, mesencephalon, metencephalon, and myelencephalon, followed by the spinal cord. Okay. Next topic is flexures. What do you mean by flexure? Bending of the developing neural tube, it is called as the, or developing brain, it is called as the flexures. Okay. How many flexures we can see in the developing brain? 4 flexures. What are those? Cervical flexure, it is present between spinal cord and rhombencephalon. Okay. And the next one is mesencephalic flexure, present in your mesencephal area or region. Then we have pontine flexure, where we can see the pontine flexure. Where we can see the pontine flexure. It is present between your metencephalon and myelencephalon. The last one is telencephalic flexure. It present between the telencephalon and diencephalon. Okay. What is the purpose of bending? Is there any necessity? Your neural tube is a narrow tubular structure. It can present in a straight line manner only, right? Why it is bending here? What is the reason? What is the reason behind bending of your developing brain? What is the significance of flexure? At least see your textbook once, embryo textbook if you have means. If you remember the development of your GIT, we can see the formation of loop, right? Both in the development of your intestine part and also in the development of stomach part, right? That happened because your abdominal region is not spacious enough to hold all the structures together. So the bending or the formation of loops takes place. The same applies for your brain part also. Your skull area during the 3rd and 4th week is not very spacious enough to hold the development of your brain and spinal cord. So the bending of your developing brain will take place, okay, to accommodate inside that small skull area, okay. And the next topic is development of ventricular system. What do you mean by ventricular system? It is the space or cavity present in the neural tube, okay. We have total 4 ventricles along with one special structure, that is aqueduct, okay. What are the ventricles? We can see in the developing embryo: lateral ventricle, 3rd ventricle, 4th ventricle and central canal. We have one more special feature, that is the cerebral aqueduct, okay. Your cerebral aqueduct will not come under the ventricle setting. It is a separate or a special feature. Any doubts? Okay. You can see the PPT now. The brain develops from the enlarged cranial part of the neural tube. At about the end of the 4th week, enlarged cephalic part shows the 3 distinct dilations, that is called the primary brain vesicle. From cranial to caudal, we name it as prosencephalon, mesencephalon and rhombencephalon. The cavities form the ventricular system of the adult brain. Stop talking. During 5th week, both prosencephalon and rhombencephalon subdivided into 2 more vesicles, thus producing the 5 secondary brain vesicles. The prosencephalon give rise to telencephalon and diencephalon. The telencephalon develops from the lateral diverticulum by invagination, which enlarge, overgrow and cover the caudal diencephalon to form the cerebral hemisphere. I have already mentioned your telencephalon will develop into a cerebral hemisphere, and the diencephalon thus becomes hidden in the lower part of the cerebral hemisphere and forms the thalamus, hypothalamus and epithalamus parts. Thus mesencephalon give rise to the midbrain. It does not show much changes in early part of development, except that its cavities gets progressively narrowed to form the cerebral aqueduct. The rhombencephalon divides into mesencephalon and eventually develops into pons and cerebellum. I have mentioned the mesencephalon will develop into pons and cerebellum, and the myelencephalon will give rise to your medulla oblongata. Okay, these are the adult derivatives or structures derived from the secondary brain vesicles. This is the diagram. Take 1 or 2 minutes and compare all the structures which I have shown. First you can see 3 primary brain vesicles followed by 5 secondary brain vesicles. Then you can see the adult derivatives of each brain vesicles. Whatever the cavity here you are seeing, no, these cavities, this will later give rise to your ventricular system of the brain, okay. Which fluid runs in this cavity? Cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, okay. Any doubts? Any doubts? Okay. This is the tabular column for all the adult derivatives and also the ventricular system. Okay, what you have seen in the diagram is given in the tabular column. Okay, next. Flexures of the brain. Primitive brain presents three flexures: pontine flexure at the middle of the rhombencephalon, cervical flexure at the junction of the rhombencephalon and spinal cord, and the last one is cephalic, that is mesencephalic flexure. It is present in the region of your midbrain. The brain assumes its configuration as a result of differential growth of its vesicles and also its flexures. In most of the textbook, only these three flexures are mentioned, but there is one more flexure also. What is that? It is your telencephalic flexure. Okay, note on that point also. You can see here, this is the diagram which I have shown later. This is the straight line structure, then we have the different flexures taking place. Here you can see the cervical flexure, then the mesencephalic flexure followed by telencephalic and also pontine flexure here. See the diagram and compare the structures. Any doubts in this diagram? And this is to show the all flexures and also your ventricles together. Okay, this is how the developing brain will appear at the 5th week inside your skull. This is the exact picture how it will appear. This is from cranial to caudal. This is the cranial area and this is the caudal area. You can see telencephalon is the most enlarged part because it is giving rise to your hemisphere. Beneath the telencephalon, we can see very small diencephalon part. So basically, beneath your cerebral hemisphere, all your thalamus will be present. You will get to know once the gross anatomy of the brain starts, okay, at that time. Any doubts? Any doubts on this diagram? Next we have the development of ventricular system. The cavities of brain vesicles forms the ventricular system of the adult brain structure. The hindbrain cavity becomes the 4th ventricle, this one. This is the hindbrain region, it will give rise to 4th ventricle. The narrowed mesencephalic cavity becomes the cerebral aqueduct. This is the narrowest part present in your developing brain. So it will develop into your aqueduct part. The diencephalon cavity becomes the 3rd ventricle. This is the diencephalon area. And the twin telencephalic cavities become the lateral ventricle. This is the twin telencephalic area. Here the cavity present give rise to your lateral ventricle. Okay. Thus the brain contains 4 ventricles. Those are 2 lateral ventricles, a 3rd ventricle and a 4th ventricle. So when it is ventricle, you have to mention only about 4 ventricles. Your aqueduct will be a separate topic. Okay. Yes. You can see the structure. This is how the ventricles will appear in the developing embryo part. You can check which ventricle or cavity is present between which 2 areas. Stop talking. See the diagrams once, everyone. About the foramens, whatever mentioned here, this median aperture and foramen, I'll be discussing in the afternoon session. Okay. Histogenesis, there is one more topic, histogenesis, and all these foramens I'll discuss in the afternoon session. Right now only concentrate on the ventricles part. What is this anterior horn and posterior horn? Where you can see those horn. Anterior horn and posterior horn. Histology of spinal cord is finished, right? Heard of the anterior and posterior horn? It is formed by grey matter or white matter? Grey matter. Okay. So what about the white matter? Your white matter will give rise to? Okay, in the histology of spinal cord, first we have central canal. Around the central canal, which structure we can see? Grey matter or white matter? Grey matter. So your grey matter can be seen as anterior and posterior horn. Okay, what about the white matter? What structures you can see there? That is the histogenesis part. Last histogenesis heading is there, no? That will be the histogenesis part. So you should know what exactly the white matter, grey matter and central canal importance. Any doubts in this diagram? Okay, so this finishes your development of nervous system and also the introduction for the development of brain. Okay, these topics are just an introduction topics. Later again we have to discuss individually the development of forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain and also your spinal cord part. Okay.